Hi y'all, welcome back to my shop for another turning tip. I want to inspire you today to look around your shop and look for an opportunity for you to use a storage peg. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Alright, when I talk about a peg, you know, there's not a big difference. Some people, it might be terminology. A knob is something that I think of as you fastening on primarily with a screw. A peg is something I think more of that tends to be elongated, tends to be a long grain or a spindle turning project where sometimes knobs are cross grain, but they tend to be fastened with a little tenon that fits in a screw hole. And they could be as simple as something turned out of almost any kind of wood, a little shaker peg like this with a mushroom top, or they could be even more elaborate. These are actually could be a shaker style drawer pull where they actually go in a hole and they're fastened with a wedge on the back side, hold it. But you know, I would tend to call this a peg. But let me show you some examples of how we'd use pegs around our shop. Here's an example of a couple of pegs I used to hold up a angle drill I used to use as a Harbor Freight model, but it's got larger sides to it. Here's a better example where I've got my storage unit. Then when I needed more space, I found it was just easier to kind of turn a peg, you know, drill a hole, turn a little bit of a peg with a rounded button kind of knob on it, and glue it in to hang things on. When I needed more room, can't see these very well, I did some on the other side as well. Here's another example of using a peg where, you know, I needed something to hang my face shield on, and I had this bad accident with a bowl where I got too near the edge, so I put, you know, bang on it and fastened it. I use French cleats, so I turned the knob type of peg to hang it on. Frequently I use a camcorder. I connect it to this remote viewfinder as shown here, but it has a long length of cord attached to it that I plug into the camera that when I'm not using it, I've got to have some way to store it, and here's how I do that. I simply roll it up and I glued a peg in the side of this storage unit where I've got my templates for bowls, and I just hang it on that. I used to hang it on top of this little bitty awl I used to hold the templates down, but the problem is sometimes I needed to use the awl, and it tended to hit the floor. So I just glued a little peg. I didn't even glue it in. I just tapped it in with a mallet. Here's another example of a peg. And I use this one to hang my earmuffs for ear protection. And I just angle it over there like that. Again, the distinction between a knob and a peg could be subtle. Again, these knobs are fastened on with screws, but this knob here is actually a peg. I actually drilled a hole in here and glued this in. And that's a little piece of bovine ivory, a little dog bone that I turned to inset it. And here's another example of a peg where I just needed to hang this faceplate ring somewhere, so I just drilled a hole, turned a little peg, and glued it in. This is my bowl depth gauge, but on this brass rod I need to put something. I don't know whether you want to pull that call that a knob, or whether you want to pull it call it a pull, or whether you want to call it a cap, but it's along the same lines. So it's something quick and dirty I turned that serves a useful purpose. Along the same vein as the cap on my bowl depth gauge, here's on my dust collector. I had this rod that was sticking up that used to have a longer rod that stuck in here. I didn't want to lose this. I didn't want to bother to take it loose. I figured I'd lose it, so I just turned a little protective cap, if you will, on here, just so I wouldn't lose the part in case I want to put the other part on it. But I just friction fit that on there so I don't scratch myself or poke myself in the eye when I'm bending over it nearby. Hope this has been a useful tip for you. If you want more details on the actual turning involved, you might check out this video, longer video I've got on turning knobs and pegs. Y'all stay safe. Come on back here. Is this a knob or a peg? Well, this is my bowl depth gauge, but the tip I put on here, maybe I'd call that